What's up guys, Miles here with 9to5Mac, and let's talk about the iPad Air for a bit. The iPad Air was kind of a tablet that came and went. I think a lot of people spent time reviewing this tablet on the basis of comparing it to the iPad Pro, including myself, simply because they share the same design language. But when you take the comparison aspect out of it and just evaluate the tablet on its own, it's been a really compelling device for me to use, and it doesn't make me miss my iPad Pro. Here's why. 9to5Mac on YouTube is sponsored by Zugu Case. Featuring a deceptively thin but highly protective design, the Alpha case is built to give you stylish features and the most functional and protective design for the iPad Pro. The Alpha case features not one but two slots for your Apple Pencil, at the top for charging or on the back. You've got a built-in adjustable stand with 8 magnetic angles, which is going to give you a super secure viewing angle on any surface. The Alpha comes with a free 2-year no questions asked warranty, has sleep-wake functionality, and is awesome for traveling, office work, or anyone looking for a sleek and protective case. Click the link in the description to get your iPad Pro Alpha case today. And thanks again to Zugu Case for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube. Just like I said, this has the same design language as the current iPad Pro, so it looks and feels like a modern iPad. It's thin, it's obviously very light and very comfortable to use. And of course with the iPad Air in particular, you're getting a bunch of different color options that aren't available on the other iPad models. This is the sky blue model here, and I was initially kind of critical in my review of how subtle the blue actually is, and it is subtle, but in all actuality, I do like the way it looks. And I still do stand by my statement of this really being more of a silver with a very noticeable blue tint, but I don't think it's a bad look. I just wasn't expecting it to be that subtle. Overall, it's a nice tablet aesthetically speaking, and as an iPad, it's one of the best pieces of hardware you can get your hands on tablet-wise. The display is something I initially talked down on a bit in my review because it lacks a high refresh rate or 120Hz display, which is what's on the iPad Pro. But after using it for a few months, it hasn't really been something that I think about all that often. The display itself is still very high resolution and is great for watching movies, gaming, and reading, and because this tablet in general is so consistently fast, I don't find myself yearning for a high refresh rate display. I think 60Hz on the iPad Air is plenty sufficient, and the average user isn't going to have a necessity for a high refresh rate display at this point. As far as real-world usability is concerned, I'd say that brightness is probably the weakest link for the Air's display. This tablet can only get up to about 500 peak nits of brightness, whereas the iPad Pro can deliver up to 600, which is not a crazy high amount either. When using this tablet indoors, it isn't really that big of a concern, but with only 500 nits, you might struggle to get a nice view of the tablet in daylight depending on what you're trying to do. Having a brighter display would be really nice for being able to watch HDR content as well, and it's not really a deal breaker or a complaint per se, but just something that I hope they can address for Generation 5. When I initially got the Air 4, I wasn't too crazy about the fingerprint sensor. I thought it didn't make much sense for Apple to continue using Touch ID when Face ID was already in play on the iPhones and on the iPad Pro. But even though this tablet isn't that much cheaper than the 11-inch Pro, it's still technically lower end nonetheless, and you can't expect to get every top shelf feature on a middle shelf product. My initial issue with Touch ID was really the placement of the sensor, and I still do think it makes a bit more sense to put the sensor on the right side above the volume buttons, but after some months of usage, I've definitely gotten more used to the placement, and it isn't something that I consciously think about anymore. The sensor is so quick that I don't feel as though it's slowing down the usability process at all, and because of the way I use this tablet, Touch ID never feels unnatural like it might be if you were to use this as more of a laptop replacement where you've constantly got it attached to a keyboard. My thoughts on performance are pretty much the same since I initially reviewed it, but I just want to say again that performance on the iPad Air has held up just fine for my daily usage. Keep in mind that this tablet's using the A14 processor, which is Apple's latest mobile processor outside of M1, so you're going to be getting top tier performance. Not once have I ever had the iPad Air slow down on me, nor fail to complete a task in an appropriate amount of time. I don't use this tablet for gaming that often, but whenever I do, this tablet absolutely flies. Now, battery life. Battery life hasn't really blown me away, honestly, and it's pretty surprising to me because I'm not a heavy user of this tablet. I use it for various things throughout the day, but never in long stretches, and there are some days where I practically don't use the tablet at all, but whenever I come back to it, I've always got like 30 or 40% battery life left, and I'm mostly using the iPad for web browsing, watching YouTube videos, and using it as a remote monitor for my camera. After discovering this, I went into my battery settings to see that Hey Siri was taking up a very significant portion of my standby time, and since turning it on, I've experienced slightly better battery life, but overall, the battery life on the Air does feel noticeably worse than the Pro. There are people who are simply only concerned about whether this tablet will get you through the day using it consistently, and I would say yes, depending on what you're doing. If you're gaming on it all day, absolutely not, this tablet will not last you all day. But if you're using it for more basic stuff like web browsing, typing out documents, stuff like that, I would say yes, but this is definitely not a multi-day battery life iPad, and I'd always keep a charger handy if you're planning on using this as your daily driver for productivity. I also wanted to talk about iPadOS because I think iPadOS is greatly underappreciated for being much less buggy than iOS is, at least in my personal experience. I can't genuinely remember this tablet ever bugging out on me even in the slightest sense, and that really isn't something I can say for any other Apple product I own at this point. I've had a flawless experience with iPadOS 14, and I think they did a bang-up job with addressing bugs that were in version 13 to make iPadOS 14 a lot smoother. Widgets have been a nice addition to iOS 14 and iPadOS 14. Besides the fact that it's just taken so long for them to arrive, widgets on iPadOS are aesthetically satisfactory and work well. I just wish there was more you could do with them. I think it should have been a no-brainer for you to be able to place these widgets anywhere on the home screen instead of being limited to the far left side. I just don't understand why you're limited like this when you can essentially place the widgets anywhere on the iPhone's main home screen. This is my number one as far as things I want to see in the next version of iPadOS. More flexibility with widgets. And I honestly think this could be the last iPad Air we get for a year or maybe two, but there's always ways in which Apple can improve, so here are a few things that I think should be coming to the next version. Firstly, some sort of high refresh rate display is going to be a crucial must, especially if the next version isn't released until 2022 or later. Having at least a 90Hz panel should be an essential. Next, I think it would be cool if the iPad Air had an HDR capable display, meaning at least 800 to 1000 peak nits of brightness. A slight resolution bump plus a higher peak brightness definitely wouldn't hurt anybody, but we'll see what they end up doing with that. And I think this one is only inevitable as well, but the next version should definitely have 5G capability in the cellular model. Also, 64GB of base storage is starting to not feel like a whole lot these days, so hopefully the next gen has an increased base storage. 128 or something like that would be cool. And heck, after that, I think you've got the perfect tablet for $599, assuming they price it the same. Overall though, the iPad Air is honestly a great tablet on its own, and I still think anyone looking to get a new iPad for school and productivity would probably be better off with an iPad Pro if you're going to get the pencil and the keyboard and the whole shebang. The price difference of an Air with a keyboard and pencil is only about $200 less than what would be for a Pro with the keyboard and pencil. And so you just have to decide whether the features like the brighter and smoother display, Face ID, better speakers, and higher storage capacity is worth that extra $200. If not, then the iPad Air is a great steal. And right now, as of me recording this video, it's on sale at Amazon, so I'll leave a link below where you can check out that deal. But let me know what you guys think about the iPad Air for anyone who bought it at launch or for anyone who just got the Air or are about to get the Air. What do you think about it? Are you happy with the choice you made? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for future content like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Featuring a deceptively thin but highly protective design, the Alpha Case by Zugu is built to give you stylish features in the most functional and protective design for the iPad Pro. The Alpha Case features not one but two slots for your Apple Pencil, at the top for charging or on the back. You've got a built-in adjustable stand with 8 magnetic angles, which is going to give a super secure viewing angle on any surface. The Alpha comes with a free 2-year no questions asked warranty, has sleep-wake functionality, and is awesome for traveling, office work, or anyone looking for a sleek and protective case. Click the link in the description to get your iPad Pro Alpha Case today. And thanks again to Zugu Case for sponsoring 9to5Mac on YouTube.